Velkommen! I'm John Denor, and this is Goblet Points, a podcast covering MCDM, the MCDM community, and whatever else MCDM related. In this first proper outing of the podcast, I thought it'd be a good idea to sum up where MCDM is at the moment and where it started. So strap in for a quick history of everything MCDM, I guess. Starting with February 2016. Matt Colville uploads the first videos of Running the Game, his video series on tips on how to become a better game master. The aim of the series is to convince more people to want to run their own games, to make people go from wanting to play in a game to wanting to run the game. The videos show that running D&D, or any tabletop RPG for that matter, is not as scary as one might think, and not only that, it's easy. Matt has said that after watching the first handful of videos, you've basically learned everything you need to know to get started. The following 100 plus videos are just lessons Matt's learned during his many years of DMing. By watching those, you'll learn from his mistakes and become a better game master faster. 2 years later, in February 2018, Matt launches the crowdfunding campaign on Kickstarter that really sets things in motion. The Strongholds and Followers campaign goes gangbusters. It overfunds multiple times over and ends up being one of the biggest campaigns on Kickstarter of all time. Strongholds and Followers introduces rules for building strongholds. Strongholds let the characters spend gold on building a headquarter, which grants them different benefits based on their class and the type of stronghold they build. It also introduced rules for recruiting followers, like combat forces, workers for your stronghold, ambassadors to other factions, and other allies. In addition to the book, the campaign also funds the plans to lease a location to stream Matt's next campaign. Having already experimented with streaming his previous campaign, Matt really wanted the next campaign to be planned with streaming in mind. He wants to do it right, do it properly, professionally. It's from the amount of work that went into this first crowdfunding campaign that MCDM emerges. Producing, printing, and shipping the book, setting up a professional level stream, and fulfilling the stretch goals of the campaign, which included minis, something he'd never done before, is too much to handle as a side gig. MCDM becomes Matt's full-time job. In February of 2019, the first episode of The Chain is streamed. On a beautiful set with a majestic table and an impressive camera and lighting rig, Matt and 5 friends sit down weekly to further the adventures of the Chain of Acheron, a mercenary company with colorful members and centuries of history. The setting was primarily Capital, the greatest city in this or any age. It's a huge, sprawling metropolis with multiple warrens controlled by powerful noble families and organizations. It's a city of power play, intrigue, and sometimes outright battle. The Chain arrives in Capital severely beaten from their previous battle, come here to lick their wounds and rebuild their company. They quickly find themselves entangled in the politics of the city. The streams went on for 27 episodes, after which they decided to take a break from the Chain for a little while. The work of streaming every week was too taxing on the people involved, and a break was in order. As of writing this, the Chain has sadly not returned, but it hasn't been outright cancelled either. But Strongholds and Followers were only the beginning. The second crowdfunding campaign kicks off in October 2019. Now it's time for Kingdoms and Warfare. While it doesn't reach the same numbers as the previous campaign, it's still a huge success. Overfunded multiple times over, and all stretch goals unlocked. This meant a bunch of minis, a dedicated DM screen, and more. Kingdoms of Warfare introduces rules for running your stronghold. Your stronghold takes turns doing actions that are appropriate for domain to do, spy on other domains or mustering troops, for example. There are also other factions and leaders with their own strongholds you can defeat or ally with. And once you've built a formidable force with troops of your own and from allies, you'll engage the big bad on the field of battle in a game of warfare. A set of rules and a whole minigame where you play strategically against your opponent. But one thing no one involved saw coming was COVID-19. What had started as a very successful campaign ended up being a fustercluck of a problem when it came to shipping the physical goods. To make a long and Very painful story short. Kingdoms of Warfare was delayed by paper shortages, then by a printing error, and then by shipping delays. And on top of that, shipping prices skyrocketed. We're talking double, triple prices compared to before the pandemic. The shipping cost had already been charged as part of the pledge, and there was now a huge difference between the cost of shipping and the amount charged for shipping. To their amazing credit, MCDM ended up covering the vast majority of the extra cost, spending at least a literal $1 million on covering the difference. All in all, it took over a year from the release of the PDF to the shipping of the final physical books. On to happier times. In January 2021, MCDM launches Arcadia, a magazine featuring adventures, items, and additional rules for your D&D game. The magazine releases monthly for free to members of the MCDM Patreon and can also be bought in bulk from the MCDM shop. Initially, it was a 3-issue trial run, released in January, February, and March, respectively. After this trial run, the magazine had a 1-month hiatus to get the production pipeline going. And after that, it released monthly, without fail, for its entire run. Arcadia ended with its 30th issue in July 2023. At this point, MCDM had started to shift their focus to the development of the new RPG, and would not devote any more resources to developing content for D&D 5th edition. During Arcadia's 1-month hiatus in April 2021, MCDM released The Illrigger, a completely new custom class for D&D 5th edition. The Illrigger was released for free to members of the Patreon, and it can be bought in the MCDM shop. The Illrigger is based on the custom class made by Matt and Anna for Anna to play in the Chain campaign. The Illrigger is a Hell Knight, and might remind you of a Paladin at first glance, but reading the class you'll quickly understand that Illriggers are, as Matt has said, a dark reflection of a Paladin. Illriggers can place seals on their enemies to make the enemy interdicted. When the Illrigger attacks the interdicted enemy, they can consume the seal to do extra damage. They are also masters of deceit and deception, and excel at manipulating others for their own means. December 2021 saw the launch of MCDM's second custom class for D&D 5th edition, the Beastheart. This was also released for free to members of the Patreon, and is also available in the MCDM shop. The Beastheart delivers on the fantasy of having a pet fighting alongside you in combat. The PDF includes rules for how to make a pet version of basically any monster, and rules for how to bring that pet into combat. These rules are not specific to the Beastheart either. You can use them with any class. Now, anyone can have a Displacer Beast as a companion. The Beastheart themselves, though, they have a special link with their pet. While pets can aid their owners in combat, a Beastheart and their pet work together as a deadly duo, unmatched by others. In April of 2022, the crowdfunding campaign for Flee Mortals, the MCDM Monster Book, started. The aim of Flee Mortals is to give Dungeon Masters monsters that are fun to run. The Monster Book reimagines a lot of the monsters you find in the 5e Monster Manual, but with more personality, simpler stat blocks, and abilities that better reflect the nature of the monster. The stat blocks and action design is based on the action-oriented monsters concept that Matt outlined in a video in the Running the Game series. Lots of the monsters have multiple stat blocks, where each stat block have different roles in combat. You've got goblin stat blocks for type DPS goblins, artillery goblins, spellcasting goblins, crowd control goblins, and assassin goblins. In addition, the book includes enemy parties with special abilities, and rules for retainers, a follower that tags along with the party. In August 2023, right after the release of Flee Mortals, the crowdfunding campaign for the physical release of Where Evil Lives went live. The campaign only ran for 2 weeks and was for physical copies of the book only. The book itself was funded through a stretch goal in the Flee Mortals crowdfunding campaign and was provided as a free PDF to backers of Flee Mortals. Where Evil Lives is a collection of lairs where evil enemies and their lackeys preside. The book has complete maps and complete monster stat blocks for 22 layers, appropriate for levels 2 through 20. The book is fully self-contained and does not require the purchase of Flee Mortals or the Monster Manual. And that's where we are right now. MCDM is nearly done with all their D&D products, and their main focus is on their own RPG. The RPG was officially announced in January of 2023, following a major blunder by D&D owner Wizards of the Coast. They tried to change the license used by creators to publish D&D content. Under the suggested license, companies like MCDM wouldn't be able to operate. For years, Matt had talked about creating and designing his own RPG, with a rule set not beholden to 50 years of traditions. What had up until January 2023 been on the back burner immediately jumped to the front burner, I guess. If there was a sign to start development for real, that must be it. You're now more than sufficiently caught up with the history of MCDM. From here, we'll have a look at the present. Until next time, Snackis.